Okay, let me share my screen and then we can all recite it together. It's actually quite a nice Mangala Charan. Okay, let me share my screen and then we can all recite. There it is. Om Ajnanatirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati swapadantikam adandanastrinam dhanter idam yache punaha punaha Srimad Rupa padam bhoja dhulisyam janma janmani Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Nama Shreshtam Manumapi Sachiputram Matra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Uruparim Mathurim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi He Guru Jnanada Dina Bhandho Swanandadata Karunaika Sindho Vrindavana Shina Hitavatara Prasida Radha Pranaya Prachara He Dina Bhandho Karunaika Sindho Kuru Prasadan Mai Manda Mudhe Laksha Paradhe Bahu Papa Ghadhe Tatpad Padmestu Matisya Krishne Prata Shrimannavadvipe Dvinetram Dvibhujam Gurum Varabhya Pradam Shantam Smaritan Nama Purvakam Tvam Gopika Vrishavare Stanayanti Kesi Sevadikarini Guru Nijapada Padme Dasyam Pradaya Kurumam Brajakanane Shri Radhangri Sevane Rase Sukinim Sukhabdo Shri Guru Paramananda Premananda Falaprada Brajananda Pradananda Sevaya Maniyo Jaya Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitaya Kripadhaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayine Prabhave Namaha Madhuryojvala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine रूप आनुगा विरुद्धाप सिद्धांत ध्वांत हारिणे नमो गौरकिशोराय साक्षाद् वैराग्यमूर्तये विप्रलम्बरसाम्भोदे पादं भुजायते नमः नमो भक्ति विनोदाय सच्चित् आनन्दनामिने गौरशक्ति स्वरूपाय रूपनुगवरायते गौराविर्भावभूमेस्त्वं निर्देष्ट सज्जन प्रियः वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथाय ते नमः वंशकल्पातरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूप स्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तिशक्तिकम् हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांठ राधा कांठ नमोस्तुते जयतां सुरतो पंगोर मम मंदमतेर्गति मत्सर्वस्य पदाम्भोजो राधा मदनमोहनो दिव्यावृन्दारण्यकल्पद्रुमादः श्रीमद्रत्नागार सिंहासनस्थो श्रीमद्राधा श्रीलगोविन्ददेव प्रेष्ठालिभिः सेव्यमानो स्मरामि श्रीमन्रासरसारम्भी वंशीवटतटस्थिता कर्षन्वेणुस्वनैर्गोपीर् गोपीनाथ श्रीयेस्तु नः एतीन ठाकुर गौड़िया के करियाचन आत्मसात एतीनेर चरण बंदन तीने मोरनाथ तप्त कंचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वन्दे नन्दव्रजस्त्रीणं पादरेणुमभीक्ष्णशः यासां हरिकथोद्गीतं पुनाति भुवनत्रयं हन्तायम् आद्रिरबला हरिदासवर्यो यद्रामकृष्णचरणस्पर्शा प्रमोदा मानं तनोति सह गणयोस्तयोर्यत् पानीसुयावसकन्दरकन्दमूले वृन्दाय तुलसीदेव्यै प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णुभक्तिप्रदे देवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः श्रीनृसिंह जय नृसिंह जय जय नृसिंह प्रह्लादेश जय पद्मा मुका पद्मा भृङ्ग यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानमधर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम् परित्राणाय साधूनां विनाशाय च दुष्कृतां धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय संभवामि युगे युगे मन्मना भव मद्भक्तो मद्याजी मां नमस्कुरु मामैवैष्यसि युक्त्वैवम् आत्मानं मत्परायणाम् सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वां सर्वपापेभ्यो मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः शुश्रूषो श्रद्धधानस्य वासुदेव कथारुचि स्यान्महत्सेवया विप्र पुण्यतीर्थनिसेवनात् शृण्वतां स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तना Hridayantasto hyabhadrani vidhunoti suhritsatam nashtapraye subhabhadresu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki tada rajastamo bhava kamalobhadhayaschaye cheta eter anavriddham सितं सत्त्वे प्रसीदति एवं प्रसन्ना मनसो भगवद्भक्ति योगतः भगवत्तत्त्वविज्ञानं मुक्तसङ्गस्य जायते भिद्यन्ते हृदयग्रन्थिश्छिद्यन्ते सर्वसंशयः क्षीयन्ते चास्य कर्माणि दृष्ट एवात्मनीश्वरे मलि होय करे से बीज आरोपण श्रवण कीर्तन जले करये सेचन ताहा विस्तारित होय फले प्रेम प्रदा इहा माहि सेचे नित्य श्रवणादि जल वैराग्य विद्या निज भक्ति योगा शिक्षार्थ में पुरुष पुराण श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य शरीरधारी कृपाम्बुधीर्यस्तं अहं प्रपद्ये कालन्नष्टं भक्ति योगं निजम्य प्रादुष्कर्तुं कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम आविर्भूतस्तस्य पदारविन्दे गाधं गाधं लियतां चित्तभृङ्गः आजानुलम्बितभुजौ कनकावधातो संकीर्तने कपितरो कमलायताक्षो विश्वाम्भरो द्विजवरो युगधर्मपालो वन्दे जगत्प्रियकरो करुणावतारो चैतन्य कृष्ण चैतन्यो गौरंगो द्विजनायका यतीनां दण्डिनां चैव न्यासिनां च शिरोमणि रक्तांबरधर श्रीमान नवद्वीपे सुधाकरा प्रेम भक्ति प्रदश्चैव श्री सच्चिनंदनस्तथा नित्यानंद वधूतेन्दुर वसुधा प्राणवल्लभा जानवी जीवितापति कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदा प्रभु पद्मावती सुता श्रीमान सचिनंदन पूर्वजा भवोन्मत्तो जगत्रात रक्त गौर कलेवरा मत्समो नास्ति पापात्मा न पराधी न कश्चन परिहरेऽपि लज्ज मे किं ब्रुवे पुरुषोत्तमा युवातीनं यथा योनि यूनं च युवतो यथा मनोभ्रीरमते तद्वान् मनो मे रमतां त्वयि भूमौ स्खलितपादानां भूमिरेवावलम्बनं त्वयि जातापराधानां त्वम् एव शरणं प्रभो गोविन्द वल्लभे राधे प्रार्थये त्वम् अहं सदा त्वदीयम् इति जानातु गोविंदो मां त्वया सदा सह राधे वृंदावनाधीशे करुणामृतवाहिनी कृपया निजपादाब्ज दास्यं माह्यं प्रदीयताम् जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे हरि ओम तत्सत हरे कृष्णा. So thank you all for helping me recite these wonderful mantras. You know, this compilation is just that it takes you everywhere from the traditional Gaudiya Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Guru Parampara all the way to Chaitanya Charitamrita, then going to Bhagavad Gita, then goes to Bhagavatam, then goes to different prayers. So I'm thinking after we say the whole thing every week, I think what we can do is we can just kind of break down one mantra at a time. So I think we can take these three together, because these three are the first three, and we can kind of break them down. Is that okay, Alec Prabhu? Yeah.
What do you mean break them down? Like just translate and then?
I try to understand the translation a bit. And if we do like one or two every week, and then we can understand the translations to all the things we've right. So it'd be quite nice. So let's take the first one. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I think devotees in Columbus, we all remember this, because Dravida Prabhu, he says the English translation every time he gives the class whenever he used to come here. Um, Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Salakaya. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, who has opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance with the torchlight of knowledge. Chakshur means eyes. Unmilitam, so I'm trying to understand that means opening. Yeah. And Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, that means I offer my respectful obeisances. Um, Agyan means ignorance, right? Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya, who has opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. Um, Torchlight, I think it's is it Shalakaya?
I can add a little bit here.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Ekachakra Prabhu.
So Jnana Agyana actually is translated by Srila Prabhupada as the ointment of spiritual knowledge.
Really? Wow.
And then Shalakaya is an medical instrument that was used to apply ointment.
Wow.
So it's a nice metaphor here. And we're having this ointment of spiritual knowledge applied to our eyes.
Wow. Shalakaya. Wow. That's quite nice. Yeah. So that I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, who has opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance with the torchlight of knowledge. That's quite nice. Alec Prabhu, you want to read the second one, the translation?
Sure, Prabhu. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtham Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. So, when will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? So, Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam. So, it's his mano means our it's translated into even mind, but here it can be translated as the desire, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire. Sthapita means to establish. Yeah, sthapit. It's even in Hindi it's said that bhutale in this material world. Swayam Rupa means Srila Rupa Goswami himself. Kadamayam dadati. Dadati means to give. And swapadantikam. When will this Srila Rupa Goswami, who has established Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission in this world, will dadati means will give. Swapadantikam. Pada means we all know, his lotus feet. When will he give shelter?
Yeah. And so much so that this, where we to find more information about the world mission to within this material world, the mission to fulfill the desires of Lord Chaitanya. So this desire of Lord Chaitanya is given in the following verses. There's this verse that Rupa Goswami's, this prayer. Rupa Goswami says this prayer when he first sees Lord Chaitanya. The first time he's seeing Lord Chaitanya, he's saying this prayer out loud. And it's Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Godatu Se Namaha. that, "O most munificent incarnation, you are Krishna himself appearing as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You have assumed the golden color of Srimati Radharani, and you are widely distributing pure love of God. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you." So that's the beautiful thing about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ekachakra Prabhu, you had something to add?
Yes, I always appreciate the tone of this verse as the quintessential mood of the Gaudiya Vaishnava of separation, because it's calling out, when, oh, when will I finally have shelter? Is those who appear to have the most connection with Krishna and are already under the shelter, they're the ones who are the most feeling bereft themselves of such shelter. And you see that the six Goswamis, they're going around Vrindavan just calling out, "Where are you, Krishna? Where are you?" So it's the same mood that we feel like we don't have the shelter yet, and we're just waiting for that great day to come when we finally receive the shelter of his lotus feet.
Rupa Goswami. Prabhupada was constantly praying like that. That when will I get the dust of the Rupa Goswami? Actually, we're Rupa Nuga Vaishnavas. There's a nice book, Prabhupada. It's called Prabhupada at Radha Damodar, my Mahanidhi Maharaj, and it's not such a famous book, but it talks about Prabhupada's pastimes in the Radha Damodar Mandir in Vrindavan, and how from Prabhupada's room he could directly have a view of Rupa Goswami's Samadhi, and that inspired him to go to the West. So he would, there's descriptions of the pujaris at Radha Damodar. Prabhupada would just be crying and crying, just sweeping around Rupa Goswami's Samadhi. So that's such a beautiful image that we are Rupa Nuga Vaishnavas. And then maybe we can conclude with this one. This is not in the traditional Mangala Charan, but it's a nice one to know about another Sri Rupa Pranam, about how to address Rupa Goswami. Traditionally, like when you go in front of the deity, you're supposed to make prayers to each of the deities, and you can. That's why Prabhupada, he established Venum Kvanantam Aravinda Dalayataksam in the Govindam prayers that we hear. So Prabhupada was giving us that. So this is one you can offer to Rupa Goswami. Ekachakra Prabhu, would you like to read this one?
Taking a blade of grass between my teeth, I fall down again and again and again. Oh, I fall down and again pray that I may become the dust at the feet of Srimad Rupa, birth after birth.
That kind of covers it, right?
And it's very nice. It reminds me of the way that he approached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If I'm not mistaken, he was one of the wealthiest, most intelligent, most successful people on the planet. And he approached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and considered himself a great fool and put the straw between his teeth, which is a traditional sign of complete humility, and just offered himself in such a way. So now we are following in that, approaching him in that same way.
Yeah. It reminds me of when he met him. It reminds me of the humility that these great people had. We think we make $5 and we think we're hot stuff, you know. But these guys were millionaires, billionaires, and then they completely surrendered everything to Lord Chaitanya, and such kopin kantasrito, that they wouldn't have anything except their kopins, and they just used to wear that and walk around, and that's how they executed Krishna consciousness. So so simple. And blade of grass, you know, what happens. I was hearing Madhavananda Prabhu say this, that why is it considered so why is it traditional to say taking a blade of grass within the teeth? It's to signify that you're no better than an animal, because an animal is the only thing that eats grass. So when you take a grass between the teeth, you're going to the spiritual master, you're going to the senior devotee, and you're saying, I am no better than an animal right now. I don't have control over my senses. I don't have control of anything. I am just completely surrendering unto you, and you do to me as you please. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Ohe Vaishnav Thakur, Ami Tomara Kukur. That means, please make me like your personal pet. Keep me as your pet, oh dear Vaishnava, because I have no idea what to do. Ami Tokangala Krishna Krishna Bholi. That I don't have power to spread the Sankirtan movement. I am just your servant. So that's real humility. It's very nice, actually. Does anybody else have any final reflections on these three? Maybe we can memorize this by next week. I know a lot of devotees have these two memorized. This one also would be a nice one to memorize. You can offer to Rupa Goswami. Anybody else have any reflections on this? Anybody else on the call? Okay, we will move on to the next part of our program, which is the Srimad-Bhagavatam class. And Srimad-Bhagavatam is a wonderful literature that we can hear practically from every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if somehow someone changes the week, you can change it to make it 8 days a week. So we have a very special speaker today, Ekachakra Prana Prabhu, who's a current, I would be foolish to say where he's from because he always travels. He's like a traveling Narada Muni. He was supposed to be here, but in Columbus, serving this class for us live, but due to providential circumstances, it could not. We are more fortunate to have him on Zoom. A little bit background on Ekachakra Prana Prabhu. He's a very sincere practitioner of bhakti, and he's a initiated disciple of His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu, and he's most recently he was at the Bhakti Center, a part of the Bhakti Center, and trying to do book distribution and Harinam Sankirtan in the Bhakti Center. And now he's traveling all throughout the country he's sharing Krishna consciousness everywhere. And, he's working on various literatures and different projects that he's working on. So, and he's an author. He's a written author. He has a really nice series. I don't know if anybody's interested. It's kind of like, it really reminds me of, his writing style reminds me of Indradumna Maharaj's Diary of a Traveling Monk. What's the exact title of your books, Prabhu?
They're called Krishna Conscious Adventures, volumes 1, 2, and 3. And
yeah,
I need to do one every year at least.
You can find them on Amazon. They're really, really they're a hot buy. I love those books. And then you just kind of like, it's kind of like Indradumna Maharaj's books. You just kind of read it and you dive into it. And then Prabhu's storytelling style, he'll put you right in the situation. And how I know that is because I was in a couple of those, me and him were together, I was in a couple of those stories and he described it better than I remembered it. So I was kind of like, whoa, did that really happen? Yeah, that really happened. So we were really happy that Prabhu agreed to speak Bhagavatam for us today. Prabhu will be speaking on the most important prayers of Bhishma Dev. And it's 9:16 right now. Prabhu will go for about 45 minutes to 1 hour, and then there will be question and answers afterwards. So Ekachakra Prana Prabhu, please go ahead. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Oh, thank you so much, Hari. And it's nice to see everyone. Please feel free to turn on your cameras. It makes a big difference to see you. And we'll keep this interactive. If anyone has any questions or any points, please feel free to jump in, throw your hand up. And that really adds a lot to the conversation. And I really appreciated that Mangalacharana that you led, Hari. Please send that to me. I feel like that covered everything. And it was making me think how sweet Bhakti yoga process really is. It's just getting together with the coolest people, your best friends, and just singing, dancing in ecstasy, take some nice prasadam, a little bit of philosophy. I mean, what could be better than that? The only real problem is just what time is the Maha coming off the altar? That's my only real worry these days. Right now I'm in New Vrindavan. Like Hari said, I was supposed to be in Columbus, but I'm here in New Vrindavan. And I'll sing the Radha Madhava, which is the traditional song for the Bhagavatam class. Srila Prabhupada sang this song every morning. And it was penned by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And it describes the spiritual world. Everything in Goloka Vrindavan is represented in this song. So it's a very nice song to have constantly in your mind. As we were singing those mantras, I was thinking how these formulas, these spiritual formulas, these mantras, they are constantly cleansing our heart and our existence. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. These spiritual sounds come from beyond the material world. And they're formulas, just like a recipe. If you just follow the recipe, you get the result. So if we just sing these songs, even if we don't fully understand it, just hearing these sound vibrations, it goes into our ears and it drains into our hearts. And it slowly but surely reorganizes our entire life. They're like seeds being planted in our minds, and then the seeds eventually will grow. And before you know it, you have trees that you can sit in the shade, you can enjoy the fruit. So we'll continue to Nityam Bhagavata Sevya, as Hari alluded to, constantly serve these transcendental vibrations. And if we can't do it 24/7, at least every day is what the acharyas say. And since I'm kind of traveling, I'm in like a hotel room, I don't actually have kartals, but I have a picture of kartals, as you can see. So hopefully that's good enough. So Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Let's give it up for Hari Ramesh on the Mridanga. Thank you so much.
I hope you could hear from New Vrindavan.
This is This is show business. It matters more how it looks than how it sounds these days. So it's said that the Hare Krishna mantra is the one mantra that you need, the most powerful. But the more we learn about Srimad-Bhagavatam, the life of Krishna and his devotees, the more potency that the Hare Krishna mantra will have in our own understanding. Because as we remember Krishna, we'll have more nuance and more emotion and more feeling and more understanding to go along with our chanting. So with that in mind, we'll jump to the Bhagavatam. If I'm not mistaken, we're looking at 1:9:18 through 20. And I can share my screen so that we can all see it at once. Is that appropriate, Hari? Okay. So this is the first canto, 9th chapter, 18th verse. And it's nice to keep in mind that the Srimad-Bhagavatam is a form of Krishna. And the first and second cantos are his lotus feet. So as we read the first and second cantos, we can realize that this is Krishna himself that we are associating with. And that the first canto, this was all Prabhupada brought to America. When he finished the first canto, he thought, I'm ready to bring Krishna consciousness to the world. So we have now all 12 cantos, but all he needed to get started was the first canto. It's very powerful. So we'll jump in here. I'll do one line, and then you can do one line behind your muted mics. Eshavai Bhagavan Sakshad, Eshavai Bhagavan Sakshad, Adyo Narayan Puman, Adyo Narayana Puman, Mohayan Maya Yalokam, Mohayan Maya Yalokam, Gudhas Charati Vrishnishu, Gudhas Charati Vrishnishu, Eshavai Bhagavan Sakshad, Adyo Narayana Puman, Mohayan Maya Yalokam, Gudhas Charati Vrishnishu. Would anyone like to unmute and do the verse as well?
Esha vai Bhagavan Sakshad,
Esha vai Bhagavan Sakshad,
Adyo Narayana Param,
Adyo
Punam
Narayana Puman,
Mohayan Mayayan Lokam,
Mohayan Maya Yalokam,
Gudas Charati Vrishnishu.
Gudhas Charati Vrishnishu. Thank you. Word for word. Esha, this. Vai, positively. Bhagavan, the supreme or the personality of Godhead. Sakshat, original. Adya, the first. Narayana, supreme Lord, the supreme Lord who lies down on the water. Puman, the supreme enjoyer. Mohayan, bewildering. Mayaya, by his self-created energy. Lokam, the planets. Gudha, who is inconceivable. Charati, moves. Vrishnishu, among the Vrishni family. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. This Sri Krishna is no other than the inconceivable original personality of Godhead. He is the first Narayana, the supreme enjoyer. But he is moving amongst the descendants of King Vrishni, just like one of us. And he is bewildering us with his self-created energy. So we'll say it all together. This Sri Krishna is no other than the inconceivable original personality of Godhead. He is the first Narayan, the supreme enjoyer. but he is moving amongst the descendants of King Vrishni, just like one of us, and he is bewildering us with his self-created energy. Purport. The Vedic system of acquiring knowledge is the deductive process. Hold on, okay, I needed to make some space on my screen. The Vedic knowledge is received perfectly by disciplic succession from authorities. Such knowledge is never dogmatic, as ill-conceived by less intelligent persons. The mother is the authority to verify the identity of the father. She is the authority for such confidential knowledge. Therefore, authority is not dogmatic. In the Bhagavad Gita, this truth is confirmed in the 2nd verse of the 4th chapter, and the perfect system of learning is to receive it from authority. The very same system is accepted universally as truth, but only the false arguer speaks against it. For example, modern spacecraft fly in the sky, and when scientists say that they travel to the other side of the moon, men believe these stories blindly because they have accepted the modern scientists as authorities. The authorities speak, and the people in general believe them. But in the case of Vedic truths, they have been taught not to believe. Even if they accept them, they give a different interpretation. Each and every man wants a direct perception of Vedic knowledge, but foolishly, they deny it. This means that the misguided man can believe one authority, the scientist, but will reject the authority of the Vedas. The result is that people have degenerated. I'll take a moment here to just mention the parampara system that we follow, where instead of where materialistic, atheistic people think that this all kind of has evolved from nothing, quite the opposite is the truth. Krishna created the most intelligent, perfected being in the universe, Lord Brahma, first. And from him, all knowledge is coming down to us. And it's coming down through the bona fide spiritual masters, from Brahma to Narada to Vyasadeva to Sukadeva Goswami and so on, leading down to Srila Prabhupada and now his disciples. And the idea of the Acharya is the individual who takes this perfect knowledge, but presents it, represents it in a modern way so that the people of the age and time can actually receive it and understand it. So Srila Prabhupada was the Acharya who brought this knowledge to the West. Before him, we didn't know any of this stuff. And he translated it into our language, and he gave these purports that use modern examples to help us understand it. And now he's passed the torch on to his own disciples, who are now writing books in even more modern language to reach the people of today. And this process will continue on forever. And maybe we in the future will become, someone of our generation will be the next Acharya who will then represent in such a way that people of the future can understand. So once we understand the authority of the Acharyas and of the parampara, then we can receive true knowledge. Otherwise, all bets are off. We have no idea what we're going to get because it's coming from mental speculation. I'll jump back into the purport. Here is an authority speaking about Sri Krishna as the original personality of Godhead and the first Narayan. Even such an impersonalist as Acharya Shankara has said in the beginning of his commentation on the Bhagavad Gita that Narayan, the personality of Godhead, is beyond the material creation. The universe is one of the material creations, but Narayan is transcendental to such material paraphernalia. Another nice point here. It was helpful for me to think about Krishna and Narayan as an analogy of a powerful CEO. So different people might know this gentleman in different capacities. When he's at the office, he looks a certain way, he talks a certain way. He's hiring people, he's firing people, he's managing huge projects and sums of money. But then when he goes home, he takes off the suit and he puts on his favorite old t-shirt. He might be rolling around on the ground with his son. He might be hanging out in the backyard with his wife. And which situation is he more enjoying? I would say at home. That's his true self, having fun and doing what he wants to do. So similarly, Narayan is like God at work. He's doing all of the official business, managing and telling the demigods what to do and receiving worship and things like this. But then Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, enjoying his true inner feelings, his true inner life, his relationships with his beloved devotees. And in Goloka Vrindavan, he makes it so all his devotees even forget that he's the supreme, because that worship and that adoration gets in the way of his simple, pure love. So that kind of speaks to this point here, that Krishna is the original supreme personality of Godhead. Moving on in the purport, Bhishma Dev is one of the 12 Mahajans who know the principles of transcendental knowledge. His confirmation of Lord Sri Krishna as being the original personality of Godhead is also corroborated by the impersonalist Shankara. All other acharyas have also confirmed this statement, and thus there is no chance of not accepting Lord Sri Krishna as the original personality of Godhead. Bhishma Dev says that he is the first Narayan. This is also confirmed by Brahmaji in the Bhagavatam. Krishna is the first Narayan. In the spiritual world of Vaikuntha, there are unlimited numbers of Narayans who are all the same personality of Godhead and are considered to be the plenary expansions of the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The first form of the Lord, Sri Krishna, first expands himself as the form of Baladev, and Baladev expands in so many other forms, such as Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Vasudeva, Narayan, Purusha, Rama, and Nrsimha. All these expansions are one and the same Vishnu Tattva, and Sri Krishna is the original source of all the plenary expansions. He is therefore the direct personality of Godhead. He is the creator of the material world, and he is the predominating deity known as Narayan in all the Vaikuntha planets. Therefore, his movements amongst human beings are another sort of bewilderment. The Lord therefore says in the Bhagavad Gita that foolish persons consider him to be one of the human beings without knowing the intricacies of his movements. Another point here is that we cannot force our way to understand Krishna. We cannot force him to reveal himself to us through our learning, through our austerities. It's impossible. The only way to really see Krishna is if he chooses to reveal himself to us, because he is the supreme controller. And the acharyas describe that the only way to win him over is through our love. So all of this learning, all this philosophy can help us get to the point where we understand that it's just about love and that we need to develop our heart for Krishna. But those things are not the end in themselves. This is the yogic ladder that's described. You start with karma kanda, you go to jnana, dhyana, meditation to find the super soul. But really the only way to Krishna, the best, fastest way to the ultimate goal is through love. And in the end, love is the simplest thing of all. There's nothing stopping us from developing our love. A 5-year-old can develop his love. So he'll bewilder us time and time again until we just come to him in pure love. Moving on in the purport. I hope it's okay that I'm doing some commentary on the commentary. Okay. The bewilderment regarding Sri Krishna is due to the action of his twofold internal and external energies upon the third one, called marginal energy. The living entities are expansions of his marginal entity, and thus they are sometimes bewildered by the internal energy and sometimes by the external energy. By the internal energetic bewilderment, Sri Krishna expands himself into unlimited numbers of Narayans and exchanges or accepts transcendental loving service from the living entities in the transcendental world. And by his external energetic expansions, he incarnates himself in the material world amongst the men, animals, or demigods to reestablish his forgotten relation with the living entities in different species of life. Great authorities like Bhishma, however, escape his bewilderment by the mercy of the Lord. Yeah, so this point that we are the marginal energy, the Tatastha Shakti, and that we can go either way. This comes back to my earlier point about how listening to these mantras is purifying us. We have the choice at all times to listen to spiritual vibration that will raise us up and will develop love in our heart. Or we can go the other way. We are marginal. We can go into the material energy deeper and deeper. We can listen to the news in the morning, for instance. If you listen to CNN when you wake up, you are entering into the material energy in a greater and greater way. You're becoming more and more entangled in the material pool. So it's very important that we become aware of what kind of sound vibration is getting into our ears, and that we choose Bhagavatam. And as it says in the Nectar of Instruction, the essence of all advice in life is to simply hear and chant Bhagavatam and other pastimes of the Lord. So we're doing it right now, and if we just continue to keep doing it, our life will be fully successful. It's easy and it's sublime. So I guess I'll do all 3 verses and then talk. It's probably the best way to do it. So we're already running low on time. So this is verse 19. Asyanu bhavam bhagavan. Veda guyatamam shivaha. Veda guyatamam shiva. Devarshir narada sakshad. Narada sakshad. Bhagavan kapilo nripa. Synonyms: Asya, of him; Anubhavam, glories; Bhagavan, the most powerful; Veda, knows; Guya tamam, very confidentially; Shiva, Shiva; Deva Rishihi, the great sage among the demigods; Narada, Narada; Sakshat, directly; Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead; Kapilaha, Kapila; Nripa, O king. O king, Lord Shiva, Narada, and the sage amongst the demigods, and Kapila, the incarnation of Godhead, all know very confidentially about his glories through direct contact. O king, Lord Shiva, Narada, the sage amongst the demigods, and Kapila, the incarnation of Godhead, all know very confidentially about his glories through direct contact. Purport: pure devotees of the Lord are all Buddhas, or persons who know the glories of the Lord in different transcendental loving services. As the Lord has innumerable expansions of his plenary form, there are innumerable pure devotees of the Lord who are engaged in the exchange of service of different humors. Ordinarily, there are 12 great devotees of the Lord, namely Brahma, Narada, Shiva, Kumara, Kapila, Manu, Prahlad, Bhishma, Janaka, Shukadev Goswami, Bali Maharaj, and Yamaraj. Bhishma Dev, although one of them, has mentioned only 3 important names of the 12 who know the glories of the Lord. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, one of the great acharyas of the modern age, explains that Anubhav, or the glory of the Lord, is first appreciated by the devotee in ecstasy manifesting the symptoms of perspiring, trembling, weeping, bodily eruptions, etc., which are further enhanced by steady understanding of the glories of the Lord. Such different understandings of bhavas are exchanged between Yashoda and the Lord, binding the Lord by ropes, and in the chariot driving by the Lord, in the exchange of love with Arjuna. These glories of the Lord are exhibited in his being subordinated before his devotees, and that is another feature of the glories of the Lord. Shukadev Goswami and the Kumaras, although situated in the transcendental position, became converted by another feature of bhava and turned into pure devotees of the Lord. Tribulations imposed upon the devotees by the Lord constitute another exchange of transcendental bhava between the Lord and the devotees. The Lord says, I put my devotee into difficulty, and thus the devotee becomes more purified in exchanging transcendental bhava with me. Placing the devotee into material troubles means delivering him from the illusory material relations. The material relations are based on reciprocation of material enjoyment, which depends mainly on material resources. Therefore, when material resources are withdrawn by the Lord, the devotee is 100% attracted toward the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Thus, the Lord snatches the fallen soul from the mire of material existence. Tribulations offered by the Lord to his devotee are different from the tribulations resulting from vicious action. All these glories of the Lord are especially known to the great Mahajans like Brahma, Shiva, Narada, Kapila, Kumara, and Bhishma, as mentioned above, and one is able to grasp it by their grace. A quick note here, Prabhupada mentioned the Damodar Leela here, the bhava, the exchange of love between Yashoda and Krishna when she was binding him by ropes. And it reminded me, because Kartik just ended the other day, and it was actually the 5-day Bhishma Panchaka, I believe that's how it's said. Was this arranged this way that we were doing these prayers at this time, or is this just in a kind of a very special coincidence that we're studying Bhishma's prayers on the celebration of his giving these prayers? There was 5 days, the final 5 days of Kartik are celebrated as the 5 days that Bhishma was lying on the bed of arrows at the end of the battle of Kurukshetra, waiting until the perfect moment to leave the body when Krishna would come and the sun was in the correct place in the sky and everything. And there's sometimes some controversy about why is it celebrated at this time? Wouldn't it make more sense if it was at Gita Jayanti? But it's not about chronology. These pastimes are happening eternally in different places in different universes. It's about increasing our devotion and our surrender to the Lord. And it's nice to see how many different ways devotees can surrender to the Lord. Look at Yashoda and look at Bhishma, such different bhavas. Motherly love versus like ghastly chivalry war. But Krishna loves both of them. It's said that Krishna enjoyed battling with Bhishma Dev. He had even blood smeared on his body and the dust landing on his body, and it's all absolute. So whatever is your natural inclination, your way to develop your relationship with the Lord, it's good. It might not be conjugal love, it might not be friendship, it might even be battling, but Krishna loves a good battle. Just kind of a side thought there. And then we have one more verse. Verse number 20. Yamanyase matuleyam, yamanyase matuleyam, priyam mitram surittamam, priyam mitram surittamam, akaro sachivam dutam, akaro sachivam dutam, sauridar atta saratim, sauridar atta saratim. Yam, the person, manyase, you think, Matulayam, maternal cousin, Priyam, very dear, Mitram, friend, Surittamam, the ardent well-wisher, Akaro, executed, Sachivam, counsel, Dutam, messenger, Saudadat, by goodwill, Ata, thereupon, Saratim, charioteer. Translation and purport. O king, that personality whom, out of ignorance only, you thought to be your maternal cousin, your very dear friend, well-wisher, counselor, messenger, benefactor, etc., is that very personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Lord Sri Krishna, although acting as the cousin, brother, friend, well-wisher, counselor, messenger, benefactor, etc. of the Pandavas, was still the supreme personality of Godhead. Out of his causeless mercy and favors upon his unalloyed devotees, he performs all kinds of services, but that does not mean that he has changed his position as the absolute person. To think of him as an ordinary man is the grossest type of ignorance. Okay, let me stop sharing here. Yeah, so many nice points in these 3 verses. I was just thinking about how, even though thinking of Krishna as an ordinary man is described as the grossest type of ignorance, we see that he puts his devotees under this yoga maya intentionally so that they will relate with him in an ordinary way, just to feel that love. There's a big difference between yoga maya and mahamaya. Yoga maya is Krishna enjoying his pastimes, whereas mahamaya is when we are just put in ignorance from the material world. So let's see here. Yeah, it's just hard to overstate the importance of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. All the Vedic literatures, there's huge libraries of Vedic knowledge. It can be described as a tree. Oftentimes the saints and sages will describe the Vedic knowledge as a tree, and it providing knowledge about how to live in the world, all material knowledge, all spiritual knowledge. Then what's the purpose of a tree? Is to produce this fruit, something that you can eat, something that you can, has seeds that will grow more trees. So the Srimad-Bhagavatam is the fruit of all those Vedic books. And the Bhagavatam is considered one of the key practices of bhakti. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave us 5 limbs of devotional service when he said, Sadhu Sangha, Nama Kirtana, Bhagavata Shravana, Maturava, Srimurtira, Shradaya Sevana. Sadhu Sangha is association with devotees. And just a quick side note, devotees are so special and so important and so rare that we should really love the devotees in our life. It's possible when you spend time with devotees, it says familiarity breeds contempt. You might live in the ashram and eventually over the months and weeks and years think, this guy, he takes too long to brush his teeth, or he leaves his, some weird little thing. But we got to keep in mind the ultimate picture is that devotees are the most special, rare people on the planet. They deserve 100% love and respect because they're doing the impossible. The devotee is standing up against Kali and living for Krishna. And then the second of those limbs is chanting the holy name, Nama Kirtan, which is the key practice of the Hare Krishna movement. And we can always improve our chanting. We can go into that subject maybe later if there's time. But I was getting to the third one here, Bhagavata Shravana, hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam. It's encouraged to hear every day. It can be helpful to choose a number of pages that you read from the Srimad-Bhagavatam. It's just like chanting. It's very helpful to have a certain number. We do 16 rounds a day. Maybe you can also do 16 pages a day. When you decide on a number to do every day without fail, then it's like drops drops a day, and eventually you can carve the Grand Canyon. You can fill the bucket just by keeping a steady stream. If you break your steady practice one day, it's 100 times easier to break it again the next day. There's a program that you can even download called Be a Sage Page by Page that's been developed to help people to develop the reading of the Srimad-Bhagavatam and other of Prabhupada's books by breaking it down into manageable daily numbers. So when you look at the whole Bhagavatam on the shelf, it can be really overwhelming and difficult to even get started. But if you think, oh, I just need to read 2 pages a day, then you can make a lot of progress. If you do 1 verse a day, like Bhagavatam class, it'll take 50 years. And that's great. I mean, nothing wrong with that. But if you want to read the Bhagavatam several times and become an expert at it, you can up your pages, keep it steady stream, add it to your daily routine. You chant your rounds, and then you just open the books. Do a chapter of Bhagavad Gita, do 20 pages of Bhagavatam, and then you're ready to step out the door. This is what fortifies us to go out and face this disturbed, challenging world, which is described as an ocean of faults. But it's also worshipped by the most advanced transcendentalists. Kali Yuga is worshipped because we have the benediction of the holy name. In the most challenging age, we have the most direct and easy path back home. It's chanting the holy name, hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam, these 5 limbs of devotional service. And the last 2, just because I brought it up. Mathura Vas, residing in a holy place. So you want to live in a holy place, or if you can't, make your house a holy place. Go to the temple as often as possible. The temple is non-different from Mathura. And then the last one was Srimurtira Shradaya Sevana, or worshiping the deity with love and devotion. So we only have a few minutes left. Let's see what I can cover here. Yeah, with just a few minutes, just glorifying the Bhagavatam. This is what Prabhupada brought. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would read hundreds of times and weep on the pages. So if you think, oh, I know that, or oh, this is boring, just try to enter into the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who would relish every verse, every page, and actually cry tears of ecstasy. Our acharyas describe that every verse, every syllable is pouring down a stream of nectar. So as we begin to read Bhagavatam, try to get into that mood of really understanding how valuable it is. As far as, let's see here. Yeah, I mean, there's 5 minutes left. Does anyone have any reflections or any questions, just to see what you guys are thinking and maybe bring it in a certain direction? It's okay if not.
I like, thank you so much. I like the point you were making that devotees are really special, you know. I like that when you said that we take it for granted by seeing each other. Familiarity breeds contempt, and you know that sometimes we take it for granted. But you made that point that devotees have made that firm conviction that I'm done with Kali. You know, no matter what grade of devotee you are. I was just thinking that no matter what grade of devotee you are, maybe you're not fully convinced, or maybe you're just like the fully convinced, like pure devotee. We should appreciate where they're at, where they are, and try to reciprocate with them, with where they are. You know, instead of trying to maybe put them down because they're not at the level that you are. Like devotion, like as we see in these verses, devotion does not come in a one box set, that a devotion can be either Mother Yashoda and have very sweet, or you may have to get a gada and fight the Lord. That is also devotion, and how he sees that. So I was just thinking that devotees are very sweet, and always putting them top at the topmost of our lives, and try to respect them as much as we can, I think will be good. So that was my reflection on that.
Oh, such a nice point. Thank you, Hari. Yeah, Prabhupada created this society so that we could have association with devotees.
Mm.
It's the first principle, sometimes it's described as the first principle of devotional service, is to get association. In my life, once I met a devotee, that's when things started to really happen for me. That's when I had read the book and I was interested in it. But once I met a devotee who could make it real and was really living it, even though it was challenging at times, because the material body has challenges, but just to be with another devotee, that's what will really jumpstart our spiritual life. And Ramananda Roy said something to the same effect when speaking with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, what is the greatest suffering in the material world? And Ramananda Roy said, I know no unbearable suffering except for separation from the devotees of Krishna. So sometimes we feel like we want some of our own time and space and get away from it all. But when you get to be alone, it's hard. I mean, I've lived alone for a long time, and then I always find myself wanting to go back to the temple, even though it's can be so crazy and challenging, and materially difficult. But there's something about being around the devotees that is just unbeatable ecstasy. Thank you, Hari, for that wonderful reflection. Alec?
Yes, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I really appreciate the point that you made, and even Hari, about how we should treat respectfully any devotees at any level. There are different adhikaris that already are described. So yeah, I was also thinking that how respecting as well as not offending, because offenses are one of the worst crimes in bhakti. That it can put us millions of years back in our journey, reaching to our final destination, Goloka, Vrindavan. So yeah, points. But yeah, I had one question, Prabhu. That in first verse that you covered in the purport, Prabhupada is explaining that how there are, like the example he gave was man landing on the moon. you know we should not believe in such hoax, and this is all like I'm not able to quote Prabhupada, but I'm sure that you remember that from the purport. So many times, and especially in current age also, that there are so many things that's happening around us, and don't want to name it, but you know what I'm talking about. And sometimes, there are difference in some people believe in such news or things, and some devotees don't. And now in such case, that okay, there is like um, some devotees believe, like let's just say, COVID. This is happening now. Some folks say it's hoax, some folks say it's real. Some people are going through the suffering, and some people are not. So what's your take? How do we balance and also continue to respect, and at the same time not judge their beliefs, and also accept the fact what's happening?
Yeah, really good question. Thank you. My best advice and how I do it is to try to understand. I mean, the the Sri Ishopanishad has a verse that says we need to understand transcendental topics and material topics side by side to really transcend. So I try to learn from the authorities, from the experts. So in this case, learn what the top medical professionals are saying, not so interested in what people are speculating, but go straight to the top experts and learn from a variety of them and make your own conclusions based on what the experts are saying. As far as also following our acharyas. So there are living masters on the earth, our spiritual masters. And you can always take shelter in what they say and do on any subject. And if you're unclear, you can ask one of them. We can triangulate. Maybe you're familiar with the term triangulate. It's like from GPS, and you can get an exact location or exact reading if you have 3 points. So the 3 points that we can follow are the guru, the shastra, and the living saint, the sadhu. And if you have any question about what to do, if you're able to get some support from those 3 places, see what the sadhus are doing as far as COVID, see what the guru recommends, and see if you can find any shastric relevance. With those 3 together, you can find a good triangulation and get the perfect reading about how to act without any kind of mental speculation. I would certainly not participate in any kind of like internet arguments about it, and avoid the people who are extremists, because it's like a black hole. But we do want to have a balanced understanding and to make the best choices for our service. So it takes a lot of thinking. It takes a lot of work. And if it's not COVID, it's going to be some other thing. It's going to come up. This is the age of wars and of disease, and it's always going to be something. There was one other point I wanted to add, but I'm losing it now. Was that a helpful answer?
Yes, yes, definitely. You mentioned that how to avoid extremists. Um, so that was that last point also, that if there are differences in beliefs, and with people who are around us, with devotees who are around us, so how to maintain the same level of respect and not judge or discriminate in our services which we are doing together.
Yeah. One key that this is what I was going to add is you can become expert at changing the subject. Instead of engaging when somebody brings up a topic that might become negative, whether it's some speculative medical thing or maybe criticisms, this or that. If you're reactive, you just naturally dive in head first. But if you're responsive and you create a space to think between what is said to you and how you respond, you can always think, okay, we can go 2 different ways here. Which way would it be better to go? And then you can turn everyone towards this way. And once you start to do this a few times and you see the power of it, you'll see how much magic we have in our words. These are mantras. Everything we say is a mantra, and mantras create the world. And when we learn the power of our tongue, it's almost infinite. And we can start to speak in such a way that it will create positive environments. And it's said that an advanced person, their words always are for the benefit of others. So once we start to think, how can my words benefit this situation? Then we know we're on the right track. I kind of changed gears there, but I hope that was a good answer for the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. What a great insight. You're just 2.5 hours from us, and still, unfortunately, we can't meet. But hopefully.
Yeah, that was another point Hari mentioned almost in the beginning. I mentioned to him on the phone when we were talking about canceling the weekend event that there's a verse in the Bhagavatam in I believe the 4th canto, when Prithu Maharaj was doing all of his sacrifices, great king, did hundreds of all the sacrifices. I think I might be getting this wrong, but I'll go for it. And then Indra was became jealous and wanted to stop it because he was going to do as many sacrifices as he did. So he came and he stole the horse at the 100th horse sacrifice multiple times. And then they were going to utter mantras to kill Indra. But at the last second, Brahma came and said, no, stop. You can't kill Indra. He's Indra. He's a devotee. You just can't do this. Stop. And then he said something that we can take shelter of when Krishna breaks our plans and changes things at the last minute. He said, this isn't an exact quote, but he said, when something happens by providential arrangement, when providence gets in the way at the last minute and changes your plans, don't try to fight it. Don't try and change it. Because if you do try to change something that comes from Krishna, it'll just throw you deeper and deeper into material anxiety and suffering. So I thought this was relevant because, as Hari mentioned, he was going to New York City regularly, never got COVID, doing all sorts of not dangerous, but things where you'd think you'd get it. Nothing happened. But then right before an event, somehow it just breaks out in the middle of the community. You could try to fight it, or you could see it as a providential arrangement and roll with it. So I thought that was a relevant verse to bring up as well. Hey, Hare Krishna. Nice to see another face in the Zoom room.
Hare Krishna.
So it's 10:08, a very auspicious time. Does anyone else have any questions or comments or reflections? Or I could just give a little bit of nectar for the last few minutes.
Just note that if you do have any comments or questions, you will be very inauspicious to disturb the time. Shrestha, you had something to say?
No, I just wanted to turn on my video and say Haribol to Prabhu.
Thank you for doing so.
Haribol, nice to see you.
Because what your reflections are so inspiring, and the way you handle. So I'm with Hari. I was also organizing the Saturday event, and I was like pushing Hari, let's do it, and we were like confused as to how to go about this, because so many new people were looking forward to the event, and so it was such a difficult decision to go forward, but the way you explained it makes us feel so good about it. That our choice, our decision was good.
Oh,
And for the
I'm
same.
happy to hear that. Yeah, Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. We can always find Krishna's voice leading us in the correct path in the Bhagavatam. That's why we want to continue to read it. Just yesterday morning, oh, sorry, we're going to continue?
No, I'm listening to you.
Okay. Just yesterday morning, I went on a walk around the lake here at New Vrindavan. If you've been here, they have a really nice lake. And then I saw a sign, it said, Old Vrindavan, this way, 45 minutes. I was like, I don't really have 45 minutes, but I'm going to go for it anyway. So I went on a japa walk. It was freezing cold. I wasn't prepared for a long walk. My hand was like barely able to hold my beads, but I just kept going into the woods, deeper. Didn't have my phone. I was like, oh boy, what if I get lost out here? And then I found the original temple building where Prabhupada stayed for some time, way out in the middle of the woods. And then two little tiny shacks where I guess it was the men and women's ashram and an outhouse. And I was looking in the windows and just thinking, wow, in the 70s, or maybe even, I think it was the early 70s, when there was no internet, there was not as advanced technologies. These devotees were living out here in the middle of the woods, living so simply, just fully surrendered to Prabhupada and to Krishna. And I was thinking about the incredible sacrifice that they and all the other devotees have given their lives, whether it's Sankirtan devotees, or someone told me later, he was like, oh, did you see the little loft under the stairs? That's where Radhanath Maharaj lived for 9 years doing deity worship. And I was thinking about Prabhupada in there, just in the cold, just dictating his Srimad-Bhagavatam for us, and all the other places he traveled all around the world. And an old man, 70 plus years old, traveling constantly, staying up all night just to give us this information, just to help us. And it made me think like, wow, I really haven't done anything for Krishna, for Prabhupada, like all these other devotees have. And it was giving me a little bit of inspiration to try to do more. And as we've learned that book distribution is possibly the greatest service we can do. I mean, Krishna says one who teaches this knowledge to others is the most dear. Srila Prabhupada was a book distributor. He recommended book distribution. He said it was the greatest service. So after we learn Bhagavatam and read it and chant our rounds, the best thing we can do to pay forward this knowledge we've received is to go out and give it to others. The Bhadra campaign just ended recently and they smashed the goal. 35,000 sets of Srimad-Bhagavatam went out. And there's talk about bigger goals in the next few years, up to 100,000 sets, hopefully in the next 5 years. And on a college campus, you guys are near the college campus, I believe. Everybody wants to learn about spiritual life, about yoga and meditation, about being a monk. It's so relevant right now. People want to be in the know. People want to grow spiritually. So I just applaud your efforts and I encourage you to spread more book distribution, to talk about it in your community, to be confident, to set up tables between classes in the quad when thousands of students are flying back and forth. You can get out tons of books in a very short amount of time. If you just look at someone like Parameshvar Prabhu, he's been posting videos showing how he does it. And it's very organic and it's very inspiring. So distributing Srimad-Bhagavatam is a ticket back home, back to Godhead. You're basically buying your ticket to Goloka if you distribute some Srimad-Bhagavatam sets. And it's almost 10:15, so I'll just stop there. And please, I'll hand it over to Hari. And thank you so much for having me. I hope I was able to say something useful in the darkness of ignorance I find myself in. I'm just trying to repeat what my Guru Maharaj said and do a little service for you, great Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Ekachakra Prabhu. Thank you so much for coming to serve the Srimad-Bhagavatam class. We're very, very, very grateful to have you, and we hope to that you come to Columbus soon, and we can serve you. And we want to hear from you. And you know, it's really ecstatic to every time you pass by. It's one of the highlights of my week, my month, my year. Whenever I get to see you, so thank you so much.
I'm planning to drive through on Monday. Maybe I can just wave through a window so I don't get any infections.
Yeah, we could take a walk or something like that on different sides. One side of the street and the other side of the street. We can walk parallelly.
Yeah, I'm into it.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other thoughts for Prabhu, or if they do have anything, they can any quick thoughts last second at the buzzer beater?
The Krishna consciousness journey, the books that Prabhu has written, are those available online or somewhere?
Yes, they're on Amazon. Krishna Conscious Adventures is the title. And the first ones are under my English name, Eric Santagata. And then the third one is under my new name, because that's when I was initiated, Ekachakra Prana. Oh, one last point about the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when Krishna broke his own promise that he wouldn't fight, but for his own devotee, for his love, Krishna will break his own rules. So he lifted the wheel. You may have seen this picture. It's so powerful. It brings tears to my eyes. He lifts the wheel and he's rushing towards Bhishma Dev to save Arjuna. And I don't know if this is bona fide, but I read on Wikipedia that when Krishna threw that wheel, where it landed became Ekachakra Dham, which is I'm named after. Nityananda Prabhu grew up in Ekachakra Dham. So just connecting that to today's class. But I had to mention Nityananda Prabhu. Yeah, there's the picture. Yeah, so that's the chakra is Krishna's weapon that he uses to kill all the demons. But here he actually lifted the wheel of the chariot. And look at Bhishma. He's so epic. He's just like, bring it on.
They're just fighting.
Krishna was rushing like a lion towards an elephant, and he even dropped his outer garment in his rush. Just so epic. And then he may have thrown the wheel and landed in Ekachakra Dham.
We need to confirm it somehow. I always wondered why it was called Ekachakram. It does make sense. Actually, it's if you go to anywhere in India, they'll say you will go and ask them, why is this place holy, and then in a lot of these places they'll say, oh, the Pandavas came here, or or Lord Ram was passing through here. But that's a very common statement because the Pandavas were everywhere, and then Ram was everywhere also because they were exiled. So Ekachakra, I believe the Pandavas were there too.
Yeah, they were there.
I think I read that the Pandavas were there. I have no idea why it's called Ekachakra, but it would make sense. It would make sense. Well, thank you so much, Ekachakra Prabhu. We won't stop our reading of the Bhagavatam. We'll pause our reading for the Bhagavatam for the week, and next week we will continue with Bhishma Dev's prayers. So I hope to see you here on Monday, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hari, and thank you everyone else for listening in.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. His Grace Ekachakra Pran Prabhu ki jai.
Ooh.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.